Have you ever been called a narcissistic mother? Well, if you're female, or a narcissistic father. How did you feel when that was said to you, or written about you, or written to you? Well, a few months ago when I was talking about my life story, in one episode I touched upon my problematic relationship with my second daughter. It continues to be problematic, although I haven't seen her in nearly 20 years. I wouldn't want to. However, during that video, I got comments calling me a narcissistic mother. And I did actually block those people because they were taking one soundbite and judging me in total, without really looking at the traits that a narcissistic person needs to have. And I don't fall into any of those categories. I'm going to tell you what they are and leave you to judge for yourself. The core characteristics of a narcissistic personality are an inflated self-image. Arrogant individuals have an exaggerated view of their own importance, skills and accomplishments. Now, if you've watched this channel at all and you've taken notice of my personality trait, it is none of those. Every time I start to make a video, I have to rev myself up. I put a bit of perfume on. I think it gives me a little bit of confidence. And I am wary. I really do have to think long and hard about how I'm going to be judged. Now, if I were a narcissistic person, then I would be so confident and so bound up in my own sense of self-importance that none of that would come into question, because I would just know that I'm right. And as much as I would like to know that I'm right, I'm always asking myself questions. Am I this? Am I that? And clearly that does not come from a personality that is narcissistic. The next thing that I should have is a superiority complex. I would say that I don't have a superiority complex. I know where I've come from. I've never, ever left that behind. I haven't moved on to a better lifestyle, forgetting that once I was a cleaner. If you forget who you were once, then how can you appreciate what you have grown into now? Surely, where you've come from is the biggest learning in how you get to where you are now. I don't have a superiority complex. I am down there with the rest of us, just struggling and thinking that I'm not quite good enough. The third one is you have a lack of empathy. I can tell you, as somebody who regularly weeps at the plight of others on the news, I get very emotional when I see somebody suffering, because I generally feel it. I know exactly what they're going through, because frankly, I've been through most things myself. And it takes me right back there, where I was at that time. When I see their suffering, I know exactly what they're going through, what they're worrying about, how they're feeling. And often it's right here in my solar plexus that I feel it. So I don't think that trait could be ascribed to my personality. The next thing is a dominating behaviour. Now, my darling boy would say, I have a dominated personality when I tell him after his 4th cup of tea in bed, which I have brought him, that I think it's about time he got up. And it's probably about 11:30 in the daytime, or even later because he's listening to his book. Now, if that's dominating, yes, I am guilty. I lay down the law with a feather. And mark my words, I insist that he gets up at that time. Unless he gives me a really good excuse, and then I might bring him up some toast. I don't like dominating anyone. That's just not me. I think everybody should have autonomy over whatever they want to do. So, no, that doesn't fit me either. How about this one? Need for control. Now, I do need to feel in control of my own life, because nothing scares me more than feeling that I have no control. I have been through all those years of having no control over my life at all. Everything in my life was up to others to make the decisions on. And that makes me frightened and scared. Even my own death, I would want to be able to control it if I were able. I mean, obviously, I would prefer to go with a massive heart attack or in my sleep and not know anything about it. But, you know, if I were a person suffering from an incurable illness, which I knew was going to go and give me the most horrendous time, then I would want to be able to make my own decisions about when and where that was going to happen. So yes, I would need control of that. But it says here, arrogance can manifest as a need to control situations and people, often through manipulation and intimidation. Now, I don't mind what other people do. That is up to them. But for myself, I need that control to make me feel safe. So I don't feel that I'm arrogant. I just feel that I need autonomy over myself. And I think that's fair enough. The next thing, and you might say, well, yes, you do have that, Imogen, is resistance to feedback. They might be unwilling to accept criticism or suggestions for improvement, viewing it as an attack on their perceived superiority. I'm thinking of one person. They told me I was a terrible mother and a narcissistic mother, and I should be ashamed of myself and all sorts of things. And I did ask my children if they thought I was like that. I was lucky enough that they said, no, you're nothing like that. But it didn't give me pause for thought. Have I been like that? Am I resistant to being criticised? I've been criticised a lot right up until I was in my 40s. Everybody had an opinion on me. Everybody was an expert on me. And through counselling and through neuro-linguistic programming, I realised that none of that was actually me. I had been carrying around others' opinions on me my entire life thus far. That suitcase, well, actually it was a massive trunk, was so full of others' opinions of me. All wrong. None of them fitted. They're a bit like clothes, outdated, way too big or way too small, but none of them fitted me. I didn't even recognize myself from the person that they were describing. And it was only at that point that I decided to believe in myself. So when I got the narcissistic mother comment, having asked my own children, obviously not the daughter that I'm estranged from, they said, no, you're nothing like that, Mum. Nothing. And, you know, if you were a narcissistic person, you wouldn't even be asking that question, frankly. You would just know that you're not. But I did ask, and I was relieved at the answer. However, I thought at the time, I wonder what button of hers that I had pressed by talking about my own daughter. And the whole reason why I've done this video today is because somebody who I love dearly made a video today, and I was just about to start my comment because when I watch channels that I support, the first thing I do is I look on, see they've got a new video, I start watching it, and I immediately hit the like button because, you know, I want to get that done first. And then I start commenting on their video. Now, some people I have to really watch carefully because towards the end, Karen from YouTube Over 40 will stop her video abruptly, and then I might not have got all my comment out and pressed send or whatever it is, and it will go. And that's really annoying because I've probably written a message the size of War and Peace on their webpage, and it won't be published. So I have to keep an eye on her because she's sneaky. But I started watching this, and then I saw the latest comment on her video, and it was from the person that had told me I was a narcissistic mother. Do you know what? For a moment I thought, I can't comment. She'll see me and she'll say something nasty to me. And I didn't want that. I felt fear. I actually did feel fear, and I was really considering not writing anything, and like a little mouse scurrying back into my hole. But in the end, I thought, I read her comment, and I could see and understand why, in some way, she had been triggered by my criticism of my second daughter, because she had every bit of self-worth, self-belief, and everything else knocked out of her by her own parent. And I thought, that's it. When I was talking that day, she heard it as if I were criticising her, and I did feel for her. I really did. I thought I can understand why that might trigger her. But she's not my daughter. She isn't behaving as my daughter did, and still apparently does to this day. In the past 20 years, she has managed to alienate so many people around her, including all of her husband's family, her in-laws, her father, all of her brothers and sisters. And I'm sad about that because narcissistic people aren't bad. They just have personality traits that are difficult to deal with. And goodness knows, I tried harder than anyone else. Everyone else realised her behaviour was unacceptable. I just thought if I try harder, then she will be nice to me. But what I didn't appreciate was that in trying harder, I just gave her a bigger stick, and at times it felt like the size of a log to beat me with. One day I decided enough was enough. I couldn't take it any longer. Maybe I'll make a video about that one day. I don't know. But I did realise that this poor lady had gone through her own suffering with her parent, and that is why she left me such an unfortunate comment. If she really knew me, then I don't think she would have left me such a comment. Narcissistic personality disorder came into being years and years ago, and I think it was coined by Freud. However, in the 1970s and 1980s, it was more popular to talk about. Certain personality traits, like being selfish, could be put down to being a narcissist. However, it really took off with social media when everyone and their dog became a narcissist. I found that word quite difficult to say. But everyone seemed to be a narcissist. And I don't think people really looked into the characteristic traits that they need to have to call somebody that. It's thrown about so glibly as an informed diagnosis of that person being a horrible person, with this pseudo-intellectual title of being a narcissist. But it's inaccurate. And I wonder if you've ever been called a narcissist. I told you I found it difficult to say. Did you, like me, just think, I'm going to block and delete them from my channel, but also wonder if, in their childhood, they had something that my words triggered? To be a narcissist, you need to be arrogant. And the core characteristics of being arrogant is having an inflated self-image. If you've ever seen me without makeup on my Get Ready With Me, you know I can't have an inflated self-image. You know I'm going bald. You know, I've got all these problems. I've got problems with my skin. I've got problems with my health. If I had an inflated self-image, then I would make sure I didn't tell you any of that. But I do share it all here, good and bad, whether you like it or not. The other thing is you need a superiority complex. Now, I don't think I'm better than anyone. I really think that I need to be realistic about the person that I am, and I have always been like that. Believe me, growing up with the parents that I have, especially my mother, who was, well, she wasn't a narcissist, but she was schizophrenic. And, you know, when you're repeatedly told you expect the world to revolve around you, well, I'm here to tell you it doesn't. You don't grow up with any sense of any worth. When you're sent to boarding school without half the uniform and no name tags in your uniform, you realise you have no worth. Or even somebody hasn't taken the trouble to find out what you need in your trunk for boarding school, you realise you still don't have any worth. And when you marry the first person who asked you to, and they constantly call you ugly, you really know you have no worth until you know otherwise, until you get all the counselling you need to reevaluate your opinion of you. The third thing you need to have to be arrogant is a lack of empathy. Now, I'm an empath through and through. I feel what you feel. If you're in trouble, I feel it. I don't just think, oh, isn't that sad? My darling voices, I knew you'd be crying at this news item. You feel everything, don't you? Most of us will sit there and think, oh, that's sad. But I turn around and you're crying. And I do. The next thing is dominating behaviour. Well, we've discussed that. I'm not dominating unless I'm asking my darling boy to get up. And needing control. Well, we've already discussed that. I like control over me. What everybody else does is up to them. And I'm not resistant to feedback. Good or bad, it does make me think. But if it's hurtful deliberately without knowing that there is a grain of truth in it, then I will just delete it. If you're arrogant, you will do a lot of bragging and showboating. Arrogant individuals often seek opportunities to display their perceived accomplishments and skills. Well, no, I don't do that. Even though I do paint, I often think, well, if I can paint, anyone can paint. Anyone at all. Because I don't think what I do takes any skill. It takes a lot of time, and I do tend to paint over a lot of things with gesso and start all over again. I should sell my paintings by weight instead of subject, I think. I don't take credit for other people's accomplishments. I love lifting up other people because by doing that, I benefit. It gives me a thrill to see them thrive and be lifted up and achieve. It gives me a genuine thrill. Constant self-focus. Well, if constant self-focus is meant to be self-reflection, then I do that. I constantly think, am I being fair? Am I being kind? Could I do this a better way to get a better result for that person? But when you're arrogant, it means tending to make everything about themselves and their achievements, often dominating conversations. If you saw me out and about, maybe at a party, God forbid, you would think, oh, she doesn't say much. And it's true, I don't. I listen and I don't say anything because I am wary of saying the wrong thing, of being wrong. So I say nothing and I just listen. And I'm okay with that. The next thing that I would have if I were arrogant would be difficulty with relationships. It says, arrogant individuals often struggle to build and maintain healthy relationships due to their dismissive and controlling behaviour. Now, I don't dismiss anything or anyone, and the only person that I like to control is me. So, we shall see. If you've ever been called a narcissist, then leave me a comment. Tell me how you dealt with it. If you felt that their slur, because I think it was meant to be a slur, was accurate or unjustified, and what you did. And if you have been, thanks a lot for watching. Lots of love. Bye-bye.